virtually. This is the pre-authorized expense office hours for Tuesday, April 9th. For the Oregon Public Defense Commission, we have our pre-authorized expense team, as well as folks from our accounts payable team in our office on Commercial Street in Salem, not far from the Capitol. I'm here in Portland, and we've got some other folks spread out for their virtual work offices as well. And I'm deeply appreciative for everyone that is coming here. And I'm going to also do a little bit of double duty and continue to allow some people in who are coming into this meeting. We don't need to have a hard and fast start at 12 o'clock, but we hope to get started within the next few minutes as people continue to trickle in. On our agenda today, we are going to be having just a meet and greet, essentially an introduction from our pre-authorized expense team, so that you can get a better idea of who they are and put some faces to the names that may be responding to some of the requests that you put in. In addition to that, we're going to be taking your questions. You are free and welcomed to be including your questions in the chat. You could also, if for whatever reason you wanted to, still email them to me. My email address was listed in the invitation for this PAE office hours that was sent the last 2 Fridays over to folks. And then once we get through some questions, and there will be an opportunity for folks again to address their questions where they want to verbally, we encourage folks to turn their cameras on. Just so that we can get an understanding of who's here as well. But you don't need to. So if you don't feel comfortable, or you're juggling 800 other things, which I know a lot of us are, you're free to do that as well. Please mute yourself so that we don't have any issues of ambient noise, which I'm starting to get right now. My apologies. But if I can, I'm going to shift over and have start some introductions. So Ralph, if you could, please introduce yourself and then go around the room.
Good afternoon. My name is Ralph Amadon. I'm the Chief Financial Officer for the Oregon Public Defense Commission. I've been here for about 2.5, 3 years working in this agency, and I've taken on lots of different roles. This is the, it used to be the non-routine expenses, then case support services. Now it is called pre-authorized expenses. Trying to get it to where it fits where it should be. I think pre-authorized expenses is what it's going to stay. I want to go around the room and have you meet who's on the team, so we can put faces to names, and they're going to see who they are and how long they've been in the unit. The unit is broken up into 2 different areas, as we call intake and approvals, and they'll say whether they're an intake or approval and how long they've been here. So I will start with at my left, and we'll go around the room and then hit the people on the screen. Thanks.
My name is Kristen. I'm an approver, or work on approvals as a reviewer. And I've worked here for about 3.5 years now. First couple years in accounts payable, processing invoices, doing intake, getting payments out, and I've been on the pre-authorized expense team for a little over a year now.
Gotcha. Let's see. My name is Isabel Rodriguez. I'm part of the intake analyst team, so the pre-authorized expense team, and I've only been here for a few weeks now.
Hi, my name is Jared Guerrero. I'm part of the pre-authorized expense team as well. I'm a program analyst too, so I'm part of the team that reviews and authorizes the expenses, and I've been here my 4th week now.
I'm CJ Turley. I'm on the intake side of the pre-authorized expenses team, and this is my 3rd week.
I'm Bobby Wade. I'm on the intake team, and I've been here for about 3 years.
I'm Amy Jackson. I'm a senior policy analyst, and I'm helping the intake team and the authorizing team out. And I think we've got some people on the screen. Bria.
Hi, everyone. I'm Bria Handley. I am also on intake. I've been in this department for a little over 2.5 years. Prior to that, I was in accounts payable for 2 years. But yeah, that's all for me.
Amanda?
Hi, everyone. I'm Amanda. I am one of the authorizers, and I've been doing this for about 4 years now.
And Heather, you want to introduce yourself?
Yes. Hi, I'm Heather Kessinger, and I'm a senior policy analyst. And like some of the other PAEs here, I've been here for about 3 or 4 weeks.
In full disclosure, we have Kim Freeman, who is our CAP manager. She's sitting on the fringes, and just to make sure she takes it all in. So the agenda says we're going to talk about how we got here and where we think we're going, and then take some questions. So how we got here. Over the last 2 years, the commission has made several changes to try and mitigate the unrepresented persons crisis. And with every change comes a lot of systematic changes that need to be taken into consideration, and they need time to run their course. With the rapid succession of changes that happening at one time, at one point we're having changes done every single month to our systems and processes, and it took time for things to catch up. One of the things that we've experienced over the last year or so is that we've increased the amount of attorneys and providers that are actually in the system, but we haven't subsequently bolstered up our internal staff as well. So we've had, over the last couple of years, we had the same amount of people approving and doing intake and approving these requests, but our numbers are it seems like they're doubling a little bit, and at the same volume. So we're struggling to keep up. Plus, this is one of those units that has been running at 110 miles per hour for the last 3 years. And when you run something that long and that hard, people start to break down a little bit. And so we're trying to mitigate that. So what we've done recently is we've added a couple folks to the intake side so we can try and get the intake stuff down. And we added Jared to the approval side, and Amy is going to take on some of the approval side. And we've also had myself included working on some approvals as well. I think I did a couple hundred last weekend or a couple weekends ago, which is you get a great appreciation for the amount of work that's happening out there when you're doing that. So long story short, we're adding staff. We're trying to get stuff as quickly as we can. I think right now our short form approvals are almost on a daily thing, maybe 1 or 2 day out on our short forms, which is we were at 14 days a couple weeks ago. Our normal intake is about 2 weeks out now.
About a month.
It's still about a month. Optimistic. I thought it was.
We're getting there. We're getting there.
But we've gained about a week and a half's worth of speed on that by just adding folks in. And I think it's just going to get better. The approval is.
We're still about 5 weeks out.
It's about 5 weeks out. But we're hoping that with the addition of staff and as folks get some rest and are able to get their wits about themselves a little bit more, that we're gonna get better at this. The new staff is catching on, and for only being here a couple weeks, they're really starting to put their stamp on things as we go forward. We've made a number of changes to our policies. And if you go to the invoice submission page on our website, that's where we're kind of tracking the things. We're doing a lot. We have a list of things we're going to take to the commission at the next commission meeting to make some more changes, just to increase hours to get stuff on the short form. We've noticed that a lot of things are happening because they've been happening forever, and we're trying to make things a little easier to get work started and not have to wait for things like investigation, aid and assist, and such. We're trying to get those so people can just start working, and we'll catch up on the stuff. That way, folks aren't sitting without representation and not getting work done. I think that covers where we're at so far. I think I want to make a distinction right now that we are talking about the pre-authorized expenses unit at this point, and we're going to have subsequently we'll have a accounts payable office hours where we can talk about accounts payable stuff. And I know sometimes it get confusing, but when you start asking questions, if you have accounts payable questions, we'll try and be clear and answer what we can on those, but we'd like to say those for the accounts payable time period rather than that, and trying to keep these to these office hours here. How am I doing on the agenda, Reed? Did I cover?
Oh yeah, I think we're right. We're right where we need to be there. So thank you so much for that, Ralph. And again, just a reminder for folks in terms of this rundown of this office hours, we are going to be going until 1 o'clock. I, along with one of the members of our teams, will stay on. But if we wrap up early, so be it. But other folks can come in if they're coming in at 12:50 or whatever it would be. With that. we'll be running down here right now in terms of questions. We solicited questions ahead of time, and we did get one of them, which we're deeply appreciative of. So we'll get that answered soon. In addition to that, we'll be running through sort of 10 common little minor errors that we may see from providers in submitting their pre-authorized expense requests and fixes to that can then allow things to just be more streamlined for the entire process, both for you and for OPDC staff. And then additionally, we'll be staying on if there's any other additional questions that need to go. And just one last thing before we get to this first question is that we will be doing PAE office hours again in 2 weeks. So that is set for Tuesday, April 23rd from 2 to 3 p.m. And additionally, I'm sorry, one last thing to get to is that this meeting is being recorded. So just for awareness for that, and we will be posting it on our website in an effort for increased transparency so that folks who are not able to attend this meeting are able to get that information and go back and see it. So this first question comes from Janice within Forensic Project Group based in downtown Portland. And this is a little bit more of a question for accounts payable, but we will answer it here today in this platform while we have all you good folks. And it is, we have a number of experts who struggle with the online system to submit invoices and get paid. In the past, I could submit the invoices for my experts, which they appreciated and helped to foster those relationships for future cases. I understand that I am no longer able to submit invoices on behalf of my experts, the online system, and thus my inability to help the experts has caused some friction with experts. Is OPDC planning to make any changes to that system to allow attorneys to submit invoices for experts? So again, a little bit more of an accounts payable question, but we can answer it here while we've got the time and we've got you all as well. So Ralph, if you can just a little bit of it, does OPDC plan on making any changes that would allow attorneys to submit invoices for experts?
We don't, again, thanks for the question, Mr. Sell. We don't, I don't think I've actually heard this request before. So I'll take this to the accounts payable manager, who's Carl Bethel, and we'll talk through this to see if this is something that we can do. But generally, yeah, I've never heard of this. And again, I understand the plight, and have to do a little research on it. So if I can get a little more time on this, that would be great. So I can really look at it and research what the issues and problems are at that point. So yeah, I'd love to have an answer for you, say that we could or we couldn't, but I'd have to look at it more. So I'd try to find, if I can find a yes, I'll find a yes. And if I can't, then I'll explain why we can't systematically.
Wonderful. All right. Well, so we will definitely get that checked into, and then Janice, hopefully have a little bit more clarity on this, whether it's an actionable item or not for us, maybe by our next PAE office hours in 2 weeks. Ralph, does that sound like something that's feasible?
Yes, sir.
Definitely. Wonderful. All right, great. And then also, and again, folks are encouraged if they want to drop questions in the chat. Also encouraged if you'd like to turn your cameras on and ask your question directly, you can just use the raise your hand option as well to sort of alert myself, who's kind of running the behind the scenes elements of this meeting, that you'd like to submit your question. And additionally, you can ask your questions in the chat, which is what Warren did. So I'll read this here and lob it up to the team to be able to answer. But Warren says, quote, "I am concerned about what I read about PAE being specific to the attorney rather than to the client. Seems to me that the expense is for the benefit of the client's case, and the PAE should follow the client even if there is a change in attorney."
I'm happy to address that because that was a change to the policy. So, sorry, this is Amy Jackson. As the agency moves toward getting a case management system, one of the things that we are going to be asking attorneys to do, Warren, is sign off on the work that the request has been made for. That is mentioned in the current policy. It is something that we agreed not to implement until we have an FCMS system. And that is part of the reason for doing this. I will say that way back when I was doing these years ago, they didn't transfer. They weren't supposed to. If one attorney came on and requested a psychological evaluation, the next attorney may not want to use that same evaluator. They may want a different evaluator. So technically the first one should have been inactivated, and the new attorney should have requested authorization for the evaluator that they wanted to use. And that's kind of where that came from. That's why it's in there. And, you know, hopefully, and that doesn't mean that you can't use the same investigator that perhaps has already begun working on the case. You may want to do that, but the authorization going forward should be coming from you.
All right, wonderful. And then off of that, I guess we've got a follow-up from Warren, and then the chat's a little bit active here, so we've got a couple questions as well to get to. But we'll just do this follow-up that Warren just submitted, which is, will the provider be paid for the work they've done, even if the case transfers to a different attorney? I would hate to see providers not being paid for their work.
Absolutely. Providers would absolutely be paid for the work that they've already done on the case, of course. And also, Reed, if I may, there was a question here about what intake is. And I think it probably would be best answered by someone from the intake team. But I will give it a shot. Okay. So when you hit your submit button on your form, it goes to a particular team, the intake team. And they basically look at it and say, okay, did you get the case number right? Okay, is the case type right? Are the services that you're requesting something that the agency pays for? That kind of thing. And they enter it into our system. At that point, it goes, oh, and they also check to make sure that the client actually qualifies for public defense services. That's the first thing they look for. And then it goes to the authorization team, the team that actually reviews it and looks to see if the provider rate is consistent with what we've previously approved. Are the hours reasonable? All of those kinds of things. Has this type of service been requested before? If so, was it performed? If not, why not? That team takes a much deeper look into what is going on in the case. Okay. And then they make a determination as to whether or not it should be approved. So Kim, I hope that answered your question. I hope I got it right.
Please mention the unrepresented list
I did not.
requirements. Do you speak to the unrepresented requirements?
Well, we have a database that is supposed to have all the unrepresented cases that have been approved. And so that's one of the things that we search for as well. There's a couple things that like flag us to go search for it if the case has been assigned to OPDS in the past. The fast tracks, when they come in, the max amount they can be is 60. So that's one of the things we look for on there. But we search in this database, and if they are unrepresented, we put a note on it. If we can't find them in our database, we still put a note on it. And then I believe that the approval team takes a deeper look in there and makes sure that they are qualified for that rate.
And this is an added, I haven't mentioned that because this is an added thing to our processes that just happened over the last few months, almost a year now, with the unrepresented crisis that's been occurring. And it took a number of months to figure out the implications of this. And for what it means for this unit is it sometimes doubles the workload because of the amount of searching you have to do in the certain subsequent databases and online searches to get this information out. So again, those are the things that start slow when you start adding additional duties. It starts slowing the process down, and it's just like when you're in traffic. Once somebody hits the brakes, it backs everything up until you can attempt to overcome that, and we haven't done that yet. So
it's the same with the Ramos cases as well. So
the Ramos-Watkins cases is another issue that they've had to do. So there's another round of searching for things that's outside of what our normal course of business is. So again, as we keep adding these changes, making these changes to what the agency's doing, again, the changes made, then we have to figure out what it does to the subsequent systems in order to get work approved, get things paid for. And again, this ripples through the AP system as well, which adds to some of the slowdowns there. But again, we're not talking about AP here, but it does add to that as well. So that ripple effect goes through it and just slows everything down. So Okay.
Wonderful. Thank you for that information. And we're going to get to a follow-up off of sort of what we just talked about, which was the transfers. And so just a point of clarification that one of our participants and providers is looking for here, which is if you have an attorney transfer within a PD firm, does that require a new PAE?
Great question, Andy. We talked about this last week, actually, because it is a little different when it's in a public defender's office. And I would say ultimately we are going to get there with PD's offices where, yeah, it should be the attorney that had the case that is ultimately signing off on whatever provider it is that's done the work. We're not there yet. So you're safe for now is the answer if you're in a PD's office. But be aware that it's likely going to come where it doesn't matter who requested it before, regardless of what office you're in. If you're the attorney of record and someone else was the attorney of record before, you need to send in a new PAE.
Gotcha.
I'd like to add to that too, and just kind of to what Ralph was speaking about also was that's another thing that can add some length to the process is when we do have the PD office and multiple attorneys and some are submitting on behalf of each other. We can approve those currently if they're within the same office or consortium, but that extra verification time does add time to the process. It's just so people understand that if they're not submitting it directly for a case that is clearly appointed to them in OECI, other steps are taken that prevent us from moving on to the next one, which is fine. It's just to understand the process.
Gotcha. Wonderful. A great info there, Amy and Kristen. Thank you for that. And in addition, just a reminder to folks that, as we're talking about things, a lot of the elements of within PAE and AP are sort of fluid, and we're always trying to, tinker with things to try to make it better and be more responsive to our providers so that weekly Friday pre-authorized expense newsletter that we've been sending out now for the last 6 or 7 weeks or so, it seemed starting in late February, I believe, we'll be able to message and use that as an outlet to communicate to folks about changes that may be happening to our AP and our PAE team. So continue to read that when it's delivered in your inbox via MailChimp every Friday, and encourage other providers to sign up for our newsletter via MailChimp so that we can be more responsive to the people that are doing the really valuable work of defending folks via public defense here in Oregon. So if I may, I'm going to get to another question since we've kind of moved on from a handful of questions that we got about the transfers should an attorney switch off of a case. And this question comes from Jay Hughes. A question in reference to 3.8 mental health professionals. And I'm catching some static, so if somebody who is here on this call could mute themselves, I'm not sure who that would be, but we're just sort of getting some odd static at the moment. We'll continue to persevere and move forward, though. Thank you, Lord. So again, this is in reference to 3.10 mental health professionals, the second paragraph of the second sentence. So we're really citing some policy here, which is nice. Can, quote, all mental health professionals proceed with forensic evaluations once the request is submitted and do not need to wait for approval before work can begin? Or does this apply only to jurisdictions with a rapid aid and assist docket, parentheses, second paragraph, first sentence? Oh, we're here, Kristen, I guess if you can unmute, because now beautiful. Thank you. My apologies.
All
Amy,
right,
if you could just start again, my apologies. No, you're all good. It could have been, who knows? We're all good though.
So I think there's a lot of confusion when people use the words forensic evaluation. Okay. If your question, Jay, is if I need to have an aid and assist done, if I need an aid and assist, then the answer is yes. You can have your provider start working on that immediately, okay? But if it is for anything other than an aid and assist evaluation, you need to wait for approval. I will say this one other thing. It has not yet gone to the commission, but I suspect that over the next couple of weeks, we will see another evaluation type added to that list on the short form, okay? And I'm reluctant to throw it out now until the commission says, yes, go ahead and do this. But certainly by I'm sorry, Reed, did you say the 23rd was our next
Yes, the
meeting?
23rd, 2 weeks from now
Okay.
is our next scheduled office
Right.
hours.
Right, so certainly by the 23rd, we should have an answer on that. So maybe we'll be talking about that then.
Wonderful. And Amy, thank you for that info and a little bit of the intel and behind the scenes work as well. So that's good to hear. And again, we do have office hours scheduled for Tuesday, April 23rd. That's 2 weeks from today. A little bit of a different window. We just wanted to shift it so that folks who are always, clobbered with something going on at noon would be able to attend something at a slightly different hour, which is 2 to 3 p.m. I will be sending information about that office hours through our weekly PAE and AP newsletter, which goes out every Friday morning. The agenda for that will be posted at least the Friday before on our website on OPDC. On OPDC's website, and we'll also solicit questions for that as well, and hopefully have some good news to report in terms of being able to make some progress on dealing with our PAE backlog. And so, Lord, I'm just going over the questions one more time, seeing if there's anything that we missed, and I think that everything within the chat has been answered so far. So again, just an encouragement for folks who are attending this meeting. If you'd like, you're encouraged to turn your camera on, and then you can answer a question. If you want to raise your hand and start talking and ask a question, you're more than welcome to. You can also submit your question via the chat. But if we're at a time period now where we sort of exhausted any questions that we have, that is totally fine. And from there, just as we kind of right on time for the agenda, had set for 12:30 to be able to go over some of the kind of small errors that people may make, honest mistakes that folks may have when submitting the paperwork that can create some minor headaches, and then we need to email you back for clarification, and all that type of time sort of slows down the process a little bit. So if we're ready to transition over to that, I can go over those, and then if there's any need or points for clarification, folks can ask questions either verbally or via the chat for clarification on that. But if we've sort of exhausted the questions, then I can move forward with this part of the meeting. I'll just sort of stop talking for 20 seconds and see if anybody's got anything to add. Wonderful. All right, we've got a follow-up question, one that I think is valuable, and I thank you and it's so deeply appreciated to folks who are submitting questions via the chat. And this comes from Yendi as well. Is there a possibility for a short form for special languages?
Well, Yendi, I guess my first question is, Yendi, if you could elaborate on that, because interpretation and some translation is already a routine expense, so it shouldn't need an authorization. I guess I would want more information about what you're really asking for.
All right, wonderful. And while we wait for, I guess, an add-on question or some clarification within the question, I'll get to this question from Lily Elkins, which is, can you please explain the process for expediting a request? And then I guess Bobby Joe, I'm sorry if I may, adds just a little add-on, which is particularly if it's not a rush per se, but involves something like a flight, not a fight, flight.
If you send a specific email that does not have a form attached, that is just a question, it should be seen by our intake team. I would think on a daily basis, to where if there's something that's being asked to be expedited, especially for airfare or something urgent, travel for trial like that, that we should know about. Please just send an email and let us know. Often if there's the request form reattached, it might be thought to be a new submission. So that can help clarify things, because most things have attachments that need to be processed, but questions don't, or amendment requests don't. So those stick out and should always be expedited, hopefully.
Wonderful. And then Yendi has her hand up, so we'll get to the follow-up question, I guess, for a little bit of clarification, and also lovely plants that you've got behind your right shoulder. Oh, if you could unmute yourself.
Amy, it's Jennifer Humbert and Yendi here for PDMC. I guess the question is specifically, so yes, the interpreters have their, time sheets that they do. It doesn't require a PAE, but there are so many other languages that we do, request for. And then specifically for the Spanish, we have difficulties finding them here in this area. And so if there's travel involved at all, then it goes on to a short form. So I was just curious if maybe there'd be an expedited way for any of those outside of just a standard Spanish interpreting PAE.
Okay,
Like if there, if there'd be a short form for interpreting needs outside of the Spanish language, because even with Spanish, we have to do a long form if it includes mileage.
okay.
Well, the mileage can be billed as routine along with,
Mileage is now routine for everyone,
Yeah.
basically.
so if they're on the OJD list where they're certified and they're doing your interpretation, that's attorney-client communication, written or verbal, if it's just the attorney and the client, that is still able to be billed routine, and they can bill mileage along with that, as long as they provide their locations just like on the form. So that should be able to be worked out with the current policy as is.
Okay, maybe that was just a confusion that I had. I thought that was where the long form came in, is if they
It
had
changed.
any. Okay,
changed.
okay, got
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Thank you.
And if you wanna come up, we can like walk through that and figure that out.
It does still say policy in there that mileage out
Mhm.
of the state of Oregon. So only out of the
Right.
state. So it's the
Okay.
real fringe. It's not gonna affect the Marion County folks. It's gonna affect the real far outliers. Because it's a 100-mile limit, but it's out
Of the state of Oregon.
Yeah. That was the nice part about that change.
Definitely.
Wonderful. All right. And I feel like it's been, a good meeting so far in terms of being able to be responsive and having people's questions answered and giving little bits of clarification and whatnot. So thank you so much for everyone's participation and taking the time out for her. It's really valuable for the OPDC and our PAE AP team to be able to, hear from folks and try to iron out, any problems that they may be having as we continue to work on tackling this backlog. So with that, I'll again just lob it out there. If anybody has any questions that they'd like to put up, raise your hand if you'd like, as well as submit your questions via the chat, whatever would work for you. But first, we've got Bria with her hand up. So Bria, I'll just defer to you for a second while we wait for anybody to add their questions to the chat if they have them.
I just wanted to, sorry, I'm going back a little bit, to comment on the process of expediting a request. I just wanted to let everyone know that we still have in our main inbox over 2,200 emails. So if you email that one, even if there's nothing attached, there's no guarantee that we're going to see it right away. I would suggest that you call and leave a voicemail, because we check voicemails every single day and handle it right then and there. Or if you have one of our direct emails, email us directly. There's just so much in there right now that it is very easy to get lost. And I don't want to say I will catch it, because in that many, it's very hard to miss sometimes. So that was the only thing I wanted to add.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. And we've got one other question that just came in, which is from Warren as well. And it is OCDLA Juvenile Law Committee was discussing at last month's meeting how OPDC is no longer paying for lodging for trial for out-of-county attorneys. Specifically, this was in reference to Jackson County cases being handled by Clackamas County attorneys. What is the real situation with that? This is exerting a chilling effect on our consideration for taking cases out of county, or taking out of county cases, I should say. Does anybody here have any background on that? And if not, then we can just work on getting an answer for folks after this meeting. But does anyone?
I've never heard of such a thing.
No.
I cannot imagine the agency saying no, especially if it's an out-of-county case where the person's coming from Clackamas County. I suspect that there is much more to the story. But no, I've not seen anyone deny anything like that at all. So
That would be exact justification, in fact, to approve it,
right,
because they clearly need the lodging. So I would not worry about that.
It's Clackamas in Multnomah County, maybe there's something, but Clackamas to Jackson, that's a bit of a drive on a daily basis.
Yeah, no.
So,
And
if
then
you can-
we've,
yeah, if you have more information, or something specific, a case or something that you could send to us, that we could research and do it that way, that would be great. And we could look into that, but I don't know. I would say that I don't know that we would turn anything like that down. And if it did, it was clearly a mistake. So again, if we can get some particulars on that situation, that would be great, so we can do a better job researching it.
wonderful for that. And we've got Bobby Joe with their hand up. So if you can turn your camera off, you don't feel comfortable, that's totally fine. And just submit your question when you'd like. Bobby Joe.
Hi, thanks. This is Bobby Joe. Speaking to Warren's question, I work for attorney Caitlin Kelly. She's an hourly attorney, and yes, she has never been turned down for lodging, taking cases out of county. We work primarily in Multnomah and Clackamas. She goes to Malheur, Morrow, Union, Jackson, Douglas, like all of that has been approved. So hopefully there's no worries with that there. So I wanted to speak on that we've not had a problem. But to that end, I did have a question on how the meals work. Often we'll get a pre-authorization, like if she's going to Jackson for 4 or 5 days, the authorization will say she gets full day meals at, $59 a day for those 5 days. But then when we submit the invoice, it'll often come back with a correction saying, oh, it needs to be broken down by like time left and time arrived and that sort of thing. So I guess should we be going off what the authorization says, or more of what the mileage worksheet says and breaking that down on her time of arrival? There just seem to be inconsistencies there.
Well, I can say that when we approve it on our end, it's always going to be for the full day of the $59. That's our process. But the actual payment and reimbursement amount is always dependent on travel times. So that's a reason that the accounts payable side will use their travel worksheet or give you reference information for arrival and departure times in the policies to know about the actual breakdown of the meal reimbursements. But it just depends on when you leave for your trip and when you come back home. It could be prorated based on that schedule of payment amounts depending on your travel times.
Okay, gotcha.
Bobby Joe, do you know where that information is?
What do you mean? The like arrival times and stuff?
Like, yeah, like this, I'm assuming
Yeah.
you've looked at the schedule.
On
Okay,
that
yeah.
worksheet, on the
Yeah, it's in the
spreadsheet.
schedule of guideline amounts under travel expenses. It breaks it down there.
Yeah, I guess
And
I
we
was just
do-
confused if we were pre-authorized for all those days, but then invoicing needs to be lower or different or whatever. Like, I just didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, gotcha.
It's meant to cover you. So if you did leave at the earliest possible time or the latest possible time, you have that coverage in the authorization built in. But just depending on how it actually works out is where it can narrow down.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Wonderful. All right. And again, just not a last call, could be the second to last call. We'll see. But if there's anybody else who'd like to add questions, you can submit them via the chat. You can raise your hand and ask your question verbally. However you'd like to do it, we're open and welcome to it all. And if not, we can get over into sort of 10 common minor errors that we may see from folks. And then if you have any questions or clarification, we can have folks from our PAE team, add additional information. So I'll just stop talking for 20 seconds to see if anybody wants to add to the chat or raise their hand. And if not, we'll move on to the next part of our agenda. All right, receiving no questions, that is totally fine, and we can just move on to the next part of it. And with that, I'm going to move on, or I'm going to share my screen, and just so you can visually see the PDF that we've put together, and then we can go over it. And again, raise your hand or submit any questions in the chat if you need some clarification. But there we are. And can everybody see this PDF that is titled Top 10 Most Common PAE Mistakes? We can see that, the folks in the room as well. All right, wonderful, thank you. All right, so it's number one, using, and our PAE staff put this together, combing and talking to each other about sort of minor issues that they see that can hopefully help expedite the process and make it a little bit easier for both OPDC staff as well as the folks doing the good work. So number one is using psychiatric/psychological services as the service type for aid and assist requests. There is a selection for aid and assist in the dropdown, and this should be used instead. So anything needing our clarification for that from folks? Wonderful. Number two is using mitigation as the service type for psychiatric or psychological services or other evaluation/expert type requests. Mitigation services fall under the investigation category and should not be used as the catch-all service for types. Again, folks are encouraged to chime in on the chat if they have any issues or points of clarification. Number three, moving on here of our top 10, is sending in duplicate request forms and or resending a request because a response hasn't been received on the first one. Please reach out to our department for an update before resorting to a resubmission. Number four is sending a new request form when asking for an amendment. For an amendment, we simply need an email sent to our department with the authorization number and detail on what information needs to be amended. Number five is not completing the traveler section when requesting travel expenses. The traveler's name and departure and destination cities are needed to approve travel. Number six, submitting under each case number individually instead of consolidating and submitting under one case number, or alternatively, submitting on one form but listing every case number the client has in the case number box at the top of the form. You should be submitting one request for the client that is a consolidation of all cases, and the case number with the highest case type should be listed in the case number box at the top of the form. So again, I'll just read that one more time for you all so that it's digestible, but you should be submitting one request for the client that is the consolidation of all the cases, and the case number with the highest case type should be listed in the case number box at the top of the form. If anybody needs any follow-up questions or has them, please submit them via chat or raise your hand and we'll allow you to ask your question. Moving on to number 7 of our PAE common mistakes that we have, that we see, not entering a current submission/signature date, especially when submitting a corrected request form. The submission/signature date should be the actual date you are submitting the request. If a backdated request is needed, the effective date box at the bottom of the form is where you will enter the earlier start date. Please note you must select yes to the question that asks, does this request need to be backdated, before you can update the effective date. Number 8, listing one provider at the top of the request form, but a completely different provider in the travel section. We believe that this is from typing over a previous request, so please clear out any information that does not apply to the new request prior to the submission. All right, and again, folks are encouraged to submit via the chat if they have any questions or need for clarification. Moving on to number 9, attempting to fill out the form in a web browser instead of downloading the form. To function properly, the form must be downloaded, saved to your computer, and then opened in Adobe. After completing the form, please use the button at the bottom of the form to send it to OPDC's offices. To ensure that it is sent to the correct inbox, this ensures that it's sent to the correct inbox. Typically, issues with the button are due to completing the form in a web browser. And lastly, number 10, submitting a PAE request for routine services. Most commonly are requests for interpretation that would fall under routine expenses, interpretation requests for attorney/client communication through an interpreter on the certified court interpreter roster at the guideline rate do not need a pre-authorized expense. These can be billed directly to accounts payable. Please see the routine expense policy for more detail on which services or expenses are considered routine. Wonderful. All right. So right there, Lord, by the grace of probably a higher power, we are right on time for our agenda. We were able to get questions that people had within our provider community answered. I'll stop sharing my screen right now so we can get back to the lovely folks that are in our offices on Commercial Central Street in Salem. Main offices for OPDC. And we're right now at 12:45. I can stick around as well as someone else from the PAE team, just in case anybody comes in late to the meeting. And again, this meeting is being recorded. You're encouraged to rewatch it if that works for you. Additionally, I'm going to be sharing or what I would encourage folks to do is to continue to look for updates from our pre-authorized expense team and our accounts payable in terms of what we're doing to be able to be more responsive to folks. Again, we'll be having office hours on Tuesday, April 23rd from 2 to 3 p.m. So in 2 weeks, we'll be able to have an update with you. And if any other questions arise between then and now, you're free to email me with that information. But generally, just immensely thankful for everybody that came here today with questions. So helpful to be able to hear from folks, and we're obviously deeply appreciative of everything that folks have done to help us work through our backlog. Additionally, I'll be sharing a link to our email newsletter sign up in the chat of this meeting. Folks are encouraged if they know people within the provider community that are not already signed up for our emails to do so. Again, every Friday, as we have been for the last 7 weeks or so, we've been providing an email update to our providers about how we're dealing with the PAE backlog as well as the accounts payable. And that is also where we can announce changes and such to our PAE policies that folks need to know. But if there's nothing more in the agenda in terms of clarifications on any of those 10 common mistakes, or if anybody else has any additional questions, we can sort of give people back their 15 minutes or so, but we'll be sticking around just in case anybody comes to this meeting a little bit later, since it was scheduled from 12 to 1 p.m. If they have any additional questions for it. But seeing none, I'm just so deeply appreciative of everyone's time, and I can definitely get those 10 common mistakes posted in the chat as well, and I can work with the PAE team to find out another avenue to change it as well. I just want to, I guess, talk to them beforehand to make sure that they're good with that before we do so. But I will definitely copy and paste these 10 common mistakes that we see in the chat just right now. So thank you for that. But seeing no additional need or call for questions, we can wrap up this meeting. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.